Hey party people, what's up? Today I'm going to teach you my top 10 multiple choice test taking tips. That was a mouthful. Okay, roll that intro. Okay, so a little bit about why I think I'm qualified to give you test tips. I'm a college junior and pretty much a straight A student. I got A's all throughout high school and have only gotten one B that counted towards my GPA in college and a couple B's that were just for credit and not for my GPA, so I don't really count those. But I would say that I'm pretty good at taking tests. Definitely haven't gotten A's on every test I've taken, but overall, I'm decent. So these tips are just things that I do and have learned from my own experiences, and also just things that like teachers and professors have told me and that I think are helpful. Not all of these are applicable to online school, so for all of us doing online school during COVID, sorry, that hopefully some of these will help you, and hopefully one day we will be in person and the rest of these can help you. Okay, let's get into it. So my first tip is that when you are reading a question, cover up all the options of answers and read the question, think about like what you think the answer is, and then uncover the answers and pick the best one from there. Because when you just go from reading the question into looking at the answers, you're automatically filling your brain with wrong answers, and that's gonna make it harder for you to remember like what's actually the answer. Once you are reading the possible answers, read them from bottom to top. You might be like, why? But this is something that one of my professors told me, and because a lot of people will just read, if you have like A, B, C, D as possible answers, you'll just read like A and B, think like A or B is right, choose that one and go on to the next one without reading C and D. But sometimes there could be like all of the above, or it could say like C and like B and C, and there could be multiple possible correct answers, or it could be asking for the best answer and maybe there's a couple that are good but one is better than the other. And also you might realize that you read the question wrong because you might think it's asking like what is true about this like place or something. I don't know, I'm a geography major so I think about places. And it could actually be asking what's not true, so you read the first two, one of them isn't true, one of them is true, and the other two are actually true. You choose the one that you read that's true, but it was actually asking for the one that wasn't true. The best way to make sure you read all the possible answers is by reading from bottom to top, because you're not going to read C and D and skip B and A, you know? Tip number 3. Cross off the wrong answers right away, especially if you aren't 100% sure what the right answer is, because this will help you narrow down the answers, and when you're going back and double checking your work, it'll be easier if like you were stuck between two answers and you've crossed off the ones that are absolutely wrong, then you only have like 2 to think about of which one is it or not. Tip number 4 is to go with your first instinct about which answer is correct, unless you know for sure that your first instinct is wrong. Like, again, if you had misread the question, like if it was asking for what is not true, but you at first thought it was what is true, because there have been so many times where I've second guessed myself changed the answer and my first answer was right, and I always get so mad at myself for doing that. So go with your first instinct unless you know for sure your instinct is wrong. Tip number 5, when you're going back to check your work, like once you've finished all the questions, before you turn it in and you're just reviewing all the problems, make sure you didn't miss anything, or in case you need to change something, focus on the questions that you were confident in, because that's where you're most likely to catch those errors of being like, oh, I misread the wording, rather than focusing on the ones that you weren't sure about, because most likely you're probably not going to have gotten any more of a clearer insight unless like another question like clarified something for you. So focus on the ones that you were sure about to catch the little errors of like having misread something. Tip number 6 is that if you are guessing which answer is right, instead of just picking a random one for every question you're guessing on, like if there's multiple ones where you don't know the answer, or if you run out of time and just have to guess for like the last however many. I know I had to do that in like a bunch of standardized tests when I was younger, and I used to like just pick random ones for each separate question I was guessing on. So like I'd go like A, C, B, D, C, like, you know, just pick random ones. But then, let me see if I can explain this well without taking up a ton of time. So if there's 4 possible answers for each question, that means you have a 25% chance that you're gonna guess it correct. And if you're just guessing for each separate one, I can't think of the exact statistics right now, but you're like basically restarting with each question you guess on how likely you are to get it right. But if you were to say pick pick A for every question you guess on, then chances are, like on average, about 25% of all the questions or all the answers on the test are gonna be A, because like there might be one letter that has a little more than the others and like some with a little less, but overall there's probably like a pretty even distribution throughout the test of like A, B, C, D, and so on if there's more. So then if you have multiple ones that you're guessing on and 25% of the total questions on the test are answer is A, then 25% of the ones you guess on you will probably get right. That's not always gonna be the case, but like on average you have a better chance of getting more questions right if you do all the same, rather than just guessing on each individual one. And the one thing I will say with that is if you can like cross off any like possible answers that you know are wrong, and one of the ones, like you don't have to pick A for guessing, that's just like an example, but if you like can cross off the possible answer of like the one that you would have chosen if you were just guessing, then go with like the next one. So if I was choosing all A's, but then for one of the questions I knew A was not the answer, then I'd go to the next one that I thought wasn't sure if it was right or wrong, and so I would pick B. I hope that made sense. Yeah, okay. Tip number 7, this isn't gonna work for online, but if you're taking a Scantron test and you're allowed to write on like the paper they give you with all the questions, what I do is like circle or write the answer next to the question without putting it on the Scantron. At first, go through all questions and answer them without transferring it to the Scantron. And then in the last like 5 or 10 minutes, go through and transfer all those answers to the Scantron. Because then if you've like skipped one and gone back to it because you didn't want to like spend too much time on something you weren't sure on, instead of having to be like making sure you're not filling in like the like making sure that you skipped the right one on the Scantron and then go back and fill in the right one, you just fill it in all at once and are less likely to, because I've done this, you skip like question 16, but then when you're filling in the Scantron you don't realize that you have to go to 17 and you just fill in the next bubble and you end up filling in the wrong one and have to go through and erase it, or you don't even notice and then you get them all wrong because you answered it correctly but in the wrong questions bubble. Number 8 goes off of that, and so after you filled out your Scantron and you have your test paper with all the correct answers on it too, go through and make sure that you filled in every question on the Scantron and that the letter you fill in on the Scantron matches up with what you put on the test like paper, because sometimes you'll make an error and that's like a stupid error that when you get your test back you don't want to see that you missed a question because you got it right on the test but just filled it in wrong. Tip number 9 is if you are allowed to write on the test, to mark up the questions, like in the part that it asks you and in the answers. I kind of mentioned that before where it's like cross off the ones that you know are wrong, but in like the question, circle important things, underline things. If it says like what is not like a trait of something, circle not, so you like are kind of like actively engaging with the questions and making sure that you're reading every word and not just like glancing over it. And it'll help you to make sure that you're like actually answering the question that they asked you. Last tip, tip number 10, is that if there's something like a passage that you have to read and then answer questions based off of that, like that's like a passage in the test, read the questions and then read the passage so that you have in your mind like what the questions or what questions are being asked about the passage, and then you're gonna be reading it more efficiently because you don't have to focus on all like the little details. You know what to look for, and like once you come across something you can even like go and answer the question. Still like make sure you read the entire thing in case like there's something later on that like has more information that you need, but that'll help you to know what to focus on and what to look for when reading. So that was all 10 of my multiple choice test taking tips. I hope these help you and that you learned something new from this and that I didn't just tell you tips that you already knew, because that would be a waste of both my time and yours. If you want to see more videos like this, I do have some more tips like kind of related to like non-multiple choice and stuff, and so if you want to see that, let me know in the comments. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Peace. Bye.